very much for inviting me to your program.
So we see now that the US and Europe find themselves increasingly divided. This is, of course, very evident as well with the war in Ukraine. That is, the US is pushing Zelensky to accept concessions for the peace agreement, while the Europeans appear to be encouraging Zelensky to resist. So you used to be a negotiator. You worked for the EU leadership as well. How do you make sense of this? Because if Ukraine is now unraveling and a collapse without a peace settlement would be a disaster, how do you make sense of the position? I'm always asked why there's such a fierce resistance to accept any conditions or concessions.
Well, first thing I would say is, that if Europe is solidly against Trump's position, undoubtedly that there are certain factions in Washington that are giving that a green light. I don't think, in my experience, these things don't happen out of the blue, that you have all of the European Union taking a stand on Trump's proposals for Ukraine, nor do you really have the Europeans almost to a person calling for war with Russia. Now, those are two separate issues, perhaps, and we can deal with them sort of separately. But I think if you ask what happened and what was why, you can go far back to the 19th century and so on in Europe's relationship with Russia. But more recently, I think we really go to the Biden administration period. And it coincided with a time when the European Union really had what they called a democracy gap. It wasn't democratic. It still isn't. But it was pretty obvious then that there was a democracy gap. But there was also an identity gap. Because, a technocracy doesn't give ordinary Europeans an identity. It's just a thing that regulates. It's not something that you would go and sort of sacrifice for, the technocracy in Brussels. And then Biden started talking, if you recall, we had that image of
for those who may not. I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Eric Sprott, CEO of Sprott Mining. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hey Charlotte, good to be here.
Great to be here in your office. Thank you so much for having us. We're here to talk about the Save Canadian Mining Initiative, which launched this week. The aim is to address predatory short-selling practices which are harmful to junior miners and have become an issue since the TIC test was removed by IROC in 2012. For those who may not be familiar with the situation, can you start by describing why the uptick rule was the right thing to have in the first place?
Sure. I've done lots of short selling in my life because I recognize there's anomalies in the market. For example, the NASDAQ peak in 2000, the great financial crisis in 2008. But I've always worked under the premise of the uptick rule, and that means you can only short when a stock's trading up or flat. And I've always understood as an investor why it was important, because it's so easy for predators to create chaos in a stock, and all of a sudden people are looking at it and they're just selling because it's going down. And when there's no uptick rule, people can just keep selling down at will. Now, having evolved more into the junior mining space recently, which I'm in, I get to witness these things, and I don't have 100% proof that odd things are happening, but I can guarantee you, when you see a stock going down 15% in a matter of minutes, that is not somebody who's selling who's trying to get the best price. That's someone who's selling who's trying to create the worst price. And so Terry Lynch has begun this Save Mining campaign. I relate to it very, very quickly. I would prefer to see the uptick rule reinstated. I might even go so far as to say, as an investor in junior mines, I've actually probably gained by the uptick rule being gone because people are undervaluing the stocks. But by the same token, I want the retail investor to have a fair shot at things. And between the predatory short sellers, the front runners, the algos, it's becoming a game that's very, very difficult for the average investor to win it. We got to get the average investor back in the game.
Right. So you've mentioned some of the consequences we've seen since 2012. Can you talk a little bit more of what's happened from then until now?
Sure. Well, a couple of things that the group that set up this campaign have determined is that the venture exchange, when compared to indices that would mirror base metals, gold stocks, since 2012, it's underperformed those indices by something like 245%. We've also seen the number of financings is plunging. It's down something like 80% from its peak in 2012. So I think those data points prove the case. I think anyone who watches these small cap stocks can see it. You can see it in the market. You can see some shorter coming along right at the end of the day at 359.59 and knocking the stock down a little just for the sake of starting at a lower level. And let's face it, short sellers, when it's their 100% of their business, are very predatory. They want stocks to go down. They will put out false information. They'll create situations in the market where technically the stock's breaking through some downtrend, but they've created it. And then everyone looks at these things and it's easy to create panic and chaos. And so that's why the uptick rule, in my mind, should be reinstated.
Okay, so we know you're a very active participant in the junior resource space, especially recently this year. Can you describe how you see the market right now and why it's the right time to be going forward with this initiative?
Sure. Well, it's not as though, for example, here we are in November of 2019, that it's any better time than another time. I've always been a believer when the uptick rule ceased to exist, that it was a mistake, because it just lets traders come in and overwhelm the market when they choose to do that. I sense now that when I see what happens to certain stocks on news releases, where anytime a stock was up 25% in a day, all of a sudden in come the short sellers, because they kind of know that with volatility they can cause things to go back down quickly. So between that, the very odd trading that happens, the lack of new issues, the valuations of the companies. I mean, there's so many companies that have no market cap here because they've just been ground down. So I think it's very opportune. It never should have been taken away, in my mind, in all markets. But it's particularly vulnerable in the venture exchange when the market caps of the companies are way less individually than the money of the guy who's shorting it. I mean, you can have a market cap of 20 million. The guy's got $1 billion worth of shorting he can do. Well, how are you going to stand up against that? So there's more of a vulnerability there, and we've seen, I think, more chaos and devastation of the mining industries happen on the venture exchange and the bigger exchanges.
So what would be the ideal outcome? I mentioned it being more fair for retail shareholders, but how would you expect to see the junior resource environment change in this ideal situation?
Sure. Well, of course, the fact that if you could reinstate the uptick rule, you're not going to have these constant smackdowns that we have, because now the guy has to wait for it to go up to put the short on, okay, which I think is much fairer. As I say, it's the environment I lived in. It was fine. So I just think that there'll be less abuse of the system. It's bad enough, and I'm very critical of all exchanges, by the way, that, you know, they have the front running, which we all know about. They have the algo trading. Now we have the shorters can just sell a stock at will to whatever they want to sell it to, knowing full well what kind of thinking will go on when something goes down sharply. So the whole thing has to stop. I wish they'd get rid of front running too, for that matter. But the uptick rule, I think, is probably the weakest part of the demise that happens to companies on the venture exchange. That's the weakest part, because you can just kill value, and the shorters are so much bigger, more organized than the companies. The companies out there trying to drill. The short sellers just trying to get a stock down 365.
I think it's worth noting we're in a challenging market right now. Would we see an improvement in this situation if it improves, and would you expect to see an improvement in the near future?
Well, that's a great question. I responded to Toronto Stock Exchange polls before, because I used to run a brokerage firm, and my belief is the market acts better when people are in a fair market and can make money. People, you're not going to go back to a place where you lose all the time. So the exchanges have to think about what they've allowed to happen here. We've noted that the activity keeps going down all the time. Well, why wouldn't it keep going down? They'll cease to exist here somehow. Other exchanges will come along. Maybe even, as you know, there are other exchanges that are trying to supersede the TMX by preventing front running, as an example. So you know that in the passage of time, if something's inappropriate, change will happen, and somebody will lose their business. Somebody else will take their business. So, if there was an exchange that banished the uptick rule, maybe, the TMX might find themselves losing business, in which case they'd probably right the ship properly.
Okay. So what are the next steps? What are the steps toward making this work?
Well, we got to organize groups of mining companies, groups of individuals, groups of leaders, groups of brokerage companies to suggest to the venture exchange that this change is long overdue. And we, together with Terry and others, will form a group to solicit those opinions, take them to the regulators, take them to the politicians, take them to the venture exchange, and see if we can have an easy resolution of the matter rather than a major fight. Just a resolution of the matter that they realize it's time for change. And if we get enough voices and appropriate voices, I think that can happen very quickly. And thank God that Terry's taken it upon himself. I mean, I was easiest convert of all time when I heard that he was doing that, because I know we're ready for it, but I don't want to lead it. But I'm happy, very happy to support it.
Okay, and final question, how would you want our audience to participate? It's many retail investors, also institutional players. What can those people do?
Well, I think if any of them that are interested in supporting us, whether it's just by sheer vote of consciousness, to go to the website to say so. For institutions that want to support it financially, I've supported it financially. That would help.
Hey everyone, my name is Logan Underwood and I'm one of the founding members of the RailTracks open source framework. At RailTracks, our mission is simple. We want to give developers the best possible tools to build powerful agentic LLM applications. So what exactly is an agentic framework? In essence, it's a library that makes it easy to connect LLMs to prompts, tools, and memory, and to organize them into complex and dynamic flows. RailTracks lets you build, observe, and debug your agents effortlessly. Now, you've heard of other tools like LangChain, LangGraph, or Google's ADK, but RailTracks offers a different perspective, one that emphasizes a code-first approach and prides itself on expansive local tooling. And speaking of kind of open collaboration, we're fully open source and deeply committed to building this together with the community. If you're ready to dive in, it's easy to get started. Check out our documentation, Discord, and tutorials. And if you can run a simple pip install command, you're ready to build your first agent today. Hey everyone, my name is Logan Underwood and I'm one of the founding members of the RailTracks open source framework. At RailTracks, our mission is simple. We want to give developers the best possible tools to build powerful agentic LLM applications. So what exactly is an agentic framework? In essence, it's a library that makes it easy to connect LLMs to prompts, tools, and memory, and to organize them into complex and dynamic flows. RailTracks lets you build, observe, and debug your agents effortlessly. Now, you've heard of other tools like LangChain, LangGraph, or Google's ADK, but RailTracks offers a different perspective, one that emphasizes a code-first approach and prides itself on expansive local tooling. And speaking of kind of open collaboration, we're fully open source and deeply committed to building this together with the community. If you're ready to dive in, it's easy to get started. Check out our documentation, Discord, and tutorials. And if you can run a simple pip install command, you're ready to build your first agent today.
As if you guys don't watch enough videos on your own, huh? I don't know if Brandon is here, but I think he asked me about my heat. And I thought my landlord had turned it off down in the basement, just to show what an idiot I am. See, my old house didn't have this modern crap. Not that this is modern, but my house was old. I just had a thermostat. There's this, I guess it's called a thermostat, but the batteries went dead. So I just replaced the batteries and I have heat. I have heat. For those of you who sold GTII, and I think I'm looking at you, Akira Nova, I think. GTII is a penny. Not that it means anything. Railtown is last trade 29.77. The bid is 29.2. The ask is 30.33. We now have 16,491,000. We're fast approaching 16.5 million shares. It's pretty good. So this last, I don't know how long it's been, 3-4 weeks. have created a lot of anxiety for me. And I've decided, and I suggest you do as well, that that doesn't do any good to be anxious. And in my mind, Railtown now is a February story. February. Now you're going to go, oh my gosh, does that mean it can't go up before then? I actually think the stock has made its lows. They tried again today. They're trying to get it through 27.5. And what Eric Sprott just told you, because you don't, when I say it, you stop listening. But that video's not brand new. But he's saying that the short selling can overwhelm any stock. He compared in the junior mining space, which is all turned around now, but in the junior mining space, the indexes are trading much higher than the individual stocks. Now, obviously, those stocks aren't in the indices, but the indices are meant to track the stocks. And his point is that when you have the ability to sell unlimited shares, and you're doing it with computers, you don't have the uptick rule, you have no enforcement, you can walk these prices down. And there's those of you who have told me that the stock price is telling me something. And I kind of inside of me say, wait a minute. You're the same people telling me the market is all corrupt and that this person and that person, all their ideas don't work. It's all because you can't fight the corruption. Yet here with Railtown, it's the one stock where that corruption is telling you something. I don't buy it. And then there's the friendly fire. There's always friendly fire. The people that believe the selling is real and not Flash Boy style program selling ever downward. I don't think it's real. Oh yeah, it's the end of the year, it's tax loss. So yeah, it's some of it. I'd say 5 to 10 to 15% a day might be real selling. But you've got, I'm going to give you round numbers because I'm not an auditor and I don't see the numbers. But you've got insiders of Railtown prior to the acquisitions shares owning 50 million, over 50 million shares. There are insiders and powerful investors, institutions, retail in Canada. They own another 50 million plus. The float is 104 million shares, or it was. And now the acquisition, 60, 70% of that is insiders or closely held. Probably more closer to 60%. But the majority of it is restricted. They can't sell any of it. The shares that are held by the company founders, etc., they're all restricted. And then the other shares that were accumulated over the last years, the company's been public since 21. Those people have privileged information. They knew about AIP before you did. They knew and know about TELUS before it was announced. They know or can be perceived to know, assumed to know about what the hell the TELUS deal is. We don't know. We saw one news release. What does it mean? I tried to tell you yesterday. I'll keep hammering it. So they can't buy. They can't sell, is the flip side. So where does the selling come from? You know, ever since I told you live that every day the ask on the American exchange, the over-the-counter, it's 52,500. I've never seen that number again. But for weeks, and probably longer, it's always 52,500 for sale. Always. Always. Volume could be 1,000 shares traded, and it's 52,500 to sell. And the volume could be 300,000, and it's 52,500 to sell. And it's just like Eric Sprott just told you. It is a signal of people who want the worst price for the execution. Not the best price, the worst price. I think in his own way, Ham has pointed that out to you too, many times. Sometimes it helps to hear it from a billionaire, which is what Eric Sprott is. This price isn't telling you anything. And I don't care how much grief you give me and tell me that I've lost my judgment and when am I going to give up on the stock, the story, because the price is telling you something. Which way is it? Are the markets corrupted or are they fair? Is there real price discovery here? You have no buyers. Well, we're buying. Okay, we're buying. But anybody in the know uses BDO. Anyone in the know in Canada, anyone with wealth in Canada, any pools of money in Canada can't buy if they're closely associated with the story. And then the absurdity that I hear. Absolute absurdity. Well, if the news were so good or the story's so good, buyers would be front running that news. It says more about the people thinking that way than anything else. It's the greed to break the law to make a little bit more. Some of these big buyers can't buy because the stock's under $2. It's under $3, it's under $4, under $5. The buying is absent. And they walk it down. They ladder it down. They use all sorts of complicated terms that confuse you. And you're innocent. And you think, well, they would never let that happen. Even people that kind of understand, even Eric Sprott, he doesn't fully understand it. Well, he probably does. He just didn't express it that way. But the example he just gave, if your market cap is $20 million, and Railtown's market cap right now is 40 million, according to Yahoo, a little bit over. And you're in Eric's example, he said your short seller dedicated to shorting, his assets are her, they're all he's. Never seen a her. But anyway, $1 billion. But see, people think that's still a sense that the system's fair. The fact is, the short seller might have a fund of $1 billion, but there's no limit to what they can sell. And then they can, like Ionic Ventures, I think I read that the term is directionally neutral. It's all horse manure. So they can come into the market, sell the stock that they don't own, and then flash as it's down, buy it back. They can collude with others. You know all this. But yet when you look at the price, you think it's telling you something. Well, I'm here for me, and I don't know if you'll join me, but I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I'm not going to get stressed out anymore. If people are mad at me and they don't want to talk to me again and they think my judgment is off, well, it's not the first time in my life I have to pick up the pieces and walk forward alone or walk with a few people. But I'm not gonna carry that insanity anymore. It's illogical. It's illogical. You know what happened. These shills come on blaming me for the GTIs and the fingers and the. By the way, I heard today that Finger is going to have a great week next week. But I personally, number one, I don't have any money. Number two, I lost well over 100,000, probably 120, 125,000 in Finger because I chased that stupid movie. Where are you? Are you dead? Why are you there? Get the, oh God, stupidity. I've had about as much fun as I want chasing so-called squeezes in with options, which that brings up an interesting point I want to make, but not yet. Anyway, if you're in Finger, look out. Maybe next week, next 2 weeks might be a good. My opinion might be a good time to sell, but your opinion might be, hey, it's starting to go up. I got to hold on. I don't know. I don't know the story. I don't know anything. They filed I think it was 50 million shelf registration. You can look it up yourself with O'Reilly Financial. I guess somebody heard me say that all the firms that do this are Jewish. That's an Irish name, so I guess shows me they're not all Jewish. On the other hand, I don't know if O'Reilly Financial's tied in with the Toad or not, but I wouldn't trust it. I just wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't trust any financing in any stock under $5 on the North American exchanges unless it's plain vanilla. That's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. When all your love's in vain, I followed her to the station, suitcase in her hand. Oh, yes, I followed her to the station. Anyway, the argument that the stock price is telling you anything is going to leave you in the ditch, and it's going to cause you a lot of pain. I congratulate those of you who sensed it, perceived it when the stock was in the 40s that it could break down. I think that's a good indication of experience and intuition, knowledge. But I was talking to somebody this morning, and I said, I feel so badly that I've had such a sense of urgency, and I didn't make it up, by the way. I didn't make that urgency up. For what, 6 months, 7 months, at least. And I could have told everyone to wait till December. And the person I was speaking with pointed out, well, you were right. It didn't happen. Doesn't mean it couldn't have happened, but it didn't happen. And of course, we know some of the reasons. I would submit the broadest delays to government bureaucrats. And if any of you have experienced trying to get something through the court system or get approval to settle an estate or break up a trust or change a law, or just get a new driver's license, get a new passport. You know how difficult it is to deal with bureaucrats, particularly when, I'm not going to go there, but particularly a new generation of bureaucrats. It's a sense of power. The delays themselves are power. And I think, many assume, well, if Corey can't get, as I've in frustrated pointed out too, if Corey can't get, he's the CEO, the buck stops there. If he can't get an AIP deal done, what the hell kind of leader is he? And it must be a company in real trouble. It must mean their technology is falling behind. He can't make a ship float. How can he pilot it? I just think it's, again, irrational, perhaps based in some experience, but it's irrational when you add in, and there's some things I'm not going to repeat that I've said before. I'm just not going to repeat them. But the delays have absolutely nothing to do with Corey. Now, you could argue, as I think I did once, he should fly into, I'm not going to name them, but different sources of delay, both government and private, and just sit there till it's finished. Well, or get an expediter. Well, it's easy to criticize that in retrospect. I've noticed, even somewhat recently, when people get the sense that a government is going to release something and they get indications, oh, it'll be soon, it's coming. Yeah, no, it's, and then a year later, nothing. Because bureaucrats work on their own universal behavior patterns. I don't know, but we've all experienced it. But you go incrementally saying, oh, okay, that's going to be done next week. Great, I can make it that long. All right, they send a team in and it might take a month. I can wait that long. Next thing you know, a year and a quarter, year and a half goes by. Well, that might have been what happened here. It's easy to criticize backcastward. And we assume, for our own reasons, because we want our stock price to go up, that the only thing Corey should be focusing on is the price of the stock, get the news out on AIP. How do we know? There's no indication that Corey's a liar. I've shown you his 2 videos repeatedly. And he's stated in there, I don't know if I wrote it in this notebook or not, but he's stated in there that his product is first to market, best in class, world class. And that was almost 2 years ago, by the way. You know, you're going to say, well, somebody might have caught up with them. Well, that's always a risk, of course, in technology or in any successful field. Was it I can almost think of his name, the pitcher that said, "Don't look back. Someone might be gaining on you." I can see his face, but I can't have a Joe Biden brain. Anyway, I'll think of it. Competition may or may not catch up. But how do we know Corey wasn't working on the most important thing, which is revenue? We know that independent valuation, arm's length, it's in all the press releases, it's in all the filings, came up with a value of AIP, I think closer to 15% than 22.5. I don't know, but that's why I think all that complicated structure is in there. But for simplicity, we know whether it was Canaccord or someone else, the valuations they came up with. Railtown's worth 80%, AIP 15, 20%. So is it a big deal to get that deal done if you're the CEO? Of course it is. Of course it is. I'm not minimizing that. But is it where you should be focusing your time? If you're getting assurances, oh, no, it should be soon. Things are great. That, you know, so-and-so said it's about to. And so you focus over on they've increased their one platform into 5 or 6. Of course, it's all integrated in one. I don't have the vocabulary, one platform, but they've been expanding that. And how do we know that he hasn't put his time where he should be putting his time, making sure that his tool does generate revenue and comes out of the gate running? Now, again, I've tried it, not recently, but when I was younger, I've tried it at the DMV. Excuse me, I was here first. I've been standing here for 2.5 hours. How come you're waiting on? No, nothing changes. You're going to have to wait in line. In fact, if she gets a little pissed off, starts tapping her nails, big deep breath, she puts a sign she's going to lunch. You got to go down the other room. It's another 3 hours. So pushing back and getting upset and saying, "Hey, do you know who I am?" doesn't get anything done. I haven't found a successful way of getting a bureaucrat or the person on the other end of the line sorting your phone bill or your change of tickets. You can't speed it up. Well, it's our nature to blame Corey. And I've felt that way in frustration too. Well, I've expressed it. I don't know if I felt it. But we don't know the other side. Maybe his 80% of his time, as those evaluators figured it, maybe 85%, has been dedicated on his engineers and on his tools to make sure that the one thing that he knows has value, because he's worked on it for 6 years with Marwan, make sure that that's ready to go as soon as the gates open, and it may already be going, so to speak. So I've had enough of the tension, and if I've lost people, I've lost people. I'm not gonna carry the tension anymore. I think that's what you should do too, as it relates to Railtown. I do know my part in it, which is I really thought that any day, any week, you could see really sharp rises in the stock price. I think that's ahead of us. It's just been shifted. Probably the safest way for you to keep your sanity is just say it's going to be February. Just so you don't wake up every morning anxious. But I've actually, and I talk from experience, I've seen times where stocks can turn around well before you expect it to. It's hard to explain. What makes a herd of bulls or cattle walking, to the stockyard, maybe they get a sense of what's coming. What suddenly makes them stampede? Fear, and it twitches, and it gets to the next animal. That animal twitches, it gets to the next one, and then the thinking stops, and the running begins. And that's what we just went through in this stock. In some ways, selfishly, and maybe inappropriately, I don't appreciate it, because we're all adults. We all know these are speculative, volatile stories, but we also know about the shorting. On the other hand, I think I should have seen it. I should have seen that things go very slowly once they start going slowly. And I should have maybe perceived that with that constant pressure of selling, there would be a breakdown. But anyway, I can't go relive it. I never felt that way before, so I don't know how to go change that. So where are we now? And this is what I think you need. You need an attitudinal change, attitude shift. I think what you have to look at now with Railtown is it's all opportunity. It's all opportunity to buy stock and to add to your stock. And ignore what you're saying to yourself. Well, you said that back in June. Well, I did. I agree with that. I agree with it. But timing doesn't change the sheer magnitude of what's ahead of you. You just have to wait. You can do nothing and wait. That's perfectly reasonable. But one thing you can do is average down, buy more. That's taking action. That gives you power. But I really strongly suggest that you should not sell the stock. You're going to regret it if you do. It might temporarily feel good, but in 3 weeks, 5 weeks, when the stock's $1.50, $1.75, breaks $2 and it moves to $3, you're going to be looking at it like, oh my gosh, should I get back in? And you're, you won't be able to buy the same amount. So I think the next 2 weeks, the rest of the year, is just an amazing opportunity to buy this stock. Take advantage of the criminals and of the shorts. They won't feel it. Don't be angry at them, because they'll move on to something else. And they can hide these trades, but you can build your position. Let me on that topic. What's the flip side of all those people in Canada I don't know what to call it. It's a blackout, maybe a blackout. It's a I don't know what to call it. They mandatorily, unless they want to break the law, and a lot of them are people of standing. They have wealth. They own homes. And Canada, believe it or not, even though a lot of the criminal activity comes out of Canada, it's directed to the US market. Canada actually enforces quite a bit of things. They're not going to break the law or break the rules. There's a lot of penalties too. But what's the flip side of that? The big institutions and small in Canada in general can't buy the stock. But, and of course, if your mind is in the cattle stampede part, fear, irrationality, you're going to go, well, that doesn't mean this. If it's so good, the stock should be good. But listen to yourself. You need the stock to be up to have confidence in the story. You're missing out on something. Those institutions can't buy. Those wealth advisors cannot buy. Those big whales and et cetera, they cannot buy the stock right now. They can't sell it. They can't buy it. That gives you an opportunity to pick up $5 and $10 bills off the sidewalk because everybody else is down at the the parade or whatever the hell they're distracted by. It's opportunity. The only stock that's out there are these shares that are pushed downward, but you're not competing with any other buyers. Buy all you can. Buy all you can, because it's not going to last forever. Just feels like it. But your rational brain knows it's not going to last forever. So I think this is the greatest opportunity to buy Railtown. A year ago, 6-7 months ago, Railtown had a story. And I actually think, other than the timing, the story's largely unchanged, except it got much better. I never heard about TELUS, never heard about Sovereign AI Canada, never heard about data centers. Never heard about revenue sharing. And when I first heard about this, I heard about AIP and John Ruffalo and Constellation Software. All of that is 2025. All of it is 2025. As we come into 2026, and I urge you to think in terms of February even March, just so your stress levels stay down. All of that new and all of that uncertainty is gone. It's all certain now. It's all certain. So the price isn't telling you anything other than the systemic mining of American shareholders' money and CEOs' money and Canadian money by predatory, computerized so-called shorts has been successful in a period of time where the buyers who were going to carry this stock and whose research and know-how is going to carry this stock, well, they have to sit on the sidelines. It gives you an opportunity to buy. And it's incredible. It's an incredible opportunity. We now know about Thales. We now know about the data centers. We now know about sovereign AI. It's in all the releases. We know AIP closed under budget. They didn't issue more shares, they issued fewer. So I'm not going to be upset anymore, and I'm not going to take on the anxiety and the pressure of performance. Otherwise, I'm not talking to you. I'm angry because it hasn't performed, or whatever the hell's going on. I'm not going to carry it anymore. This is the greatest single buying opportunity. I mean, I've seen others. I can't remember any others right now because I've been around so long. But this is possibly the greatest single buying opportunity I've ever seen, assuming the market and the planet stay whole. This thing is valued. I'll try to do it again, but if I had to pick a number, Railtown's market cap, the entire value of the company, because of the criminals. Remember what Eric Sprott just told you. Even if a company's $20 million and $1 billion short dedicated to destroying it, I actually think it's unlimited. Or it's $1 billion and they can expand it to 30 or 40 billion. That's a B. You can crush the market cap, particularly when buyers are on the sideline. So you have to pull up your boots, get courage, sit with a pad of paper, figure out what you think it's worth, the whole entity, and buy. I showed you yesterday, and I'll try to do it again with maybe the same numbers, or maybe we'll find some others. I think Railtown projected maybe 18 months from now, easily, just from hosting. And it's always projected forward, but once it locks in, it stays. But I could easily see it doing 250 million in forward 12 months revenue. So, in other words, in April, the forward 12 months might look like 35 million. In June, the forward 12 months might look like 75 million. In August, the forward 12 months might look like 150 million. In September, October, the forward 12 months might look like 225 million. And then November, the forward 12 months might look like 300 million. So you're going to have rapid growth rate in revenue, and the forward 12 months is ever going to be increasing based on information I see that we can piece together. There's some assumptions there. So you have to try to do your best estimate and then risk it. But as analysts and news and presentations and institutions start to look at it, that's going to clarify. And guess what? If I'm right, let's say by the middle of 2027, the company has booked 250 million in previous 12 months, because it's growing, in revenues from hosting. And essentially, this is another assumption of mine, but essentially it's 100%. I don't know the accounting gimmicks, so let's just call it cash flow, as we do in oil and gas. 250 million in cash flow. And again, they're going to, the market is going to discount. They're going to bring that good news forward. But let's just say it's 18 months from now, and the quarterly numbers come out for the trailing 12 months, and it's 250 million in revenue from hosting, which is essentially cash flow. The bloody stock right now is trading under 50 million. It's trading for 40 million. In 18 months, proven, printed, earned. You could see 5 or 6 times today's market cap having been earned in revenues and in cash flow. It's an incredible opportunity. But you have to believe that AI is transformative. You have to believe that the NVIDIA computing is quantum leap. You know, I don't quite understand the difference with that and quantum computing. I think quantum computing could be another area of technological change, but I don't know any stocks there. You know, if you can't wrap your head around it, and I'm not making fun of anybody, I will tell you, the people at Almers or Mavericks or Fidelity, or, you know, if there's a Canaccord Genuity investment fund in the tech space, they'll make those projections. And by the way, it gets to 250, it could be on its way to $500 million. Just from hosting. And if you see what I'm doing, focusing only on hosting, I'm trying to simplify the story, but I'm leaving out all the other revenue that's possible, like the rolling up of these companies, 400 million ultimately in annual recurring revenues. Other businesses, I'm just ignoring all that. That is an automatic risking of the target. Railtown is a screaming buy in my judgment. Now, what are the risks? I mean, I'm going to leave out the macro risks. I mean, but the risks we don't know about, I guess, are that somehow somebody's going to beat them technologically. There's a risk that somebody who has a lesser product, i.e. line chain, comes out and says, hey, look at me, we're the best first. There's a risk that a Google or somebody just pours so much money at it that they can replicate and beat this technology. And I think the only other risk that I can think of is that the company, for some idiotic reason, shoots itself in the foot and does a deal with the Anson funds. So I've tried. Look, I've made my calls every single day. I probably annoy the other end of the line, but I have not spoken to the company or anybody à côté. But I do. There's, I guess it's just my life. There's, I guess I'm persona non grata in certain places now, for whatever reason. But there's still left over. There's some people I talk with, and I believe in the first. I don't remember the order that I gave you, but I believe in the risk of technological obsolescence or somehow losing ground technologically. My confidence is, and my feedback is, that not only have they not done that, Railtown remains, and perhaps it's in context of their overall strategy and the competitive landscape. It may, in other words, maybe it doesn't apply to some company working in KL or in some other far-flung economy. But broadly, I'm confident that not only is their technology ahead of everybody else's, best in class, first in class, and possibly, my feedback is, but we'll find out, I think it's the only one doing what they're doing. I think it's the only one. But I don't think that matters that they're the only when the market is so huge. And when we take into account from what we've seen that there's this combo with TELUS, that seems like more business than you can say grace over. So I don't think we have to worry about the technology and some sort of technological obsolescence. I really don't. Yet, I mean, there's always, look, it's going to be like Yahoo was first in search engines until Google came along. And Google could be threatened by AI 2.0. And one of these others, was it ChatGPT? One of these AI large language models could be, blow Google away, which I think is why Google is spending so much money. There is an arms race going on. Anyway, I don't think we have technological risk. Let me just act like a research analyst. So, it might be proven to be optimistic, but that's where I stand on it. Eventually, you're going to find out from research analysts, from earnings reports, from news stories, from third-party discussions, maybe from company presentations, and by that time, the stock will be up 10x. So here's that trade-off. What do you trade off for being able to buy the stock for 29 cents? A little bit of uncertainty, but I believe there's no technological risk. In fact, I think they're ahead of the game. Secondly, on the idea that they'll do toxic or some sort of crap financing, I had somebody point out to me that there's so many investors behind this story, the same ones that cannot buy now, that should the company need to raise money, they can go to them and do a plain vanilla financing, just a equity raise, restricted stock, and maybe as a unit equity and maybe half a warrant or something, but not the warrants that are set up to help the shorts. Just as plain vanilla, retail, but maybe some larger pools of money that are institutions, but not the criminal attack. And you know what? I thought about it. I think that's right. But I was also told they're not going to raise any money down here. They're just not going to do it. They own the same. I don't have that list here. Oh, here, maybe it's here. Anyway, we looked it up before, but Marwan and Corey each own almost 20 million shares of the company. They're not going to, and they've, at least one of them was for many years an investment banker. They're not going to raise any money down here. So I don't think that kind of risky financing, that nightmare of hell that CEO and boards get into. My first 2 points here, 99.9% sure. No risk of technology obsolescence, and in fact, I think they're light years ahead, and no risk of financing. And then I think those are the only two risks I said, although I feel like I listed more than two. I mean, I guess there could always be further delays. That's why I'm suggesting to you in your brain, just pretend it's going to be February. All right, so now what could happen? What could happen that changes the price before the end of the year? I mean, obviously, at any time, any stock can go down. The coordinated attack can continue. Tax loss selling can happen. Somebody can get so frustrated they just dump it. All of that can happen. But you know what? After 2 weeks or so, after December 31st, or half day then, I guess, most of that selling, if there is any more of it, will be over with. Now, that computerized mining by the shorts will continue. But guess what? In January, I wouldn't say in the first week, but by the second week, what if more than news, more than research, what if whispers start coming out about revenue? It's a whole new ballgame. It's like I don't know. It's like spring training every year. Dreams and hopes bring eternal, but in this case, they'll be real. So we just have 2 or 3 weeks, I think 4 maybe, to get into that. But what could happen beforehand? I haven't heard that there will be no news between now and January. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard there won't be any research between now and January. I haven't heard that there won't be any buying between now and January. I haven't heard that there won't be corporate presentations between now and January. It's my assumption that most of the institutions will be on vacation, but that's an assumption. If there's research, if there's news, all you need is one institution to say, I want to buy 5 million shares, I want to buy 10 million shares, and I want to get it done before the end of the year. Of course, that's limited to lifting the full disclosure block, but there's no reason it couldn't happen in December. I just think we have to start visualizing it as a February timeframe. But I wouldn't take the risk of, if Finger goes up next week and it looks like it's doing very strongly here, I mean, you do what you want, but I wouldn't take the risk of hopping from one to the other, because Railtown could be 40 cents next week. I'm not, we've gone through hell here, so we'll find out. And if there's news and research, it can snap back very quickly. There are no buyers. And there's this crooked selling every single day. Well, what happens? My favorite one to pick on, what if Mavericks decided, now they may be limited by the stock price, believe it or not, but what if, let's say they're not. What if Mavericks decided after the block was lifted to buy? Just one group. They're not going to buy 100,000 shares. They'll buy, their minimum is $50 to $60 million. At least that's what they published. I'm sure they have a lot of flexibility. But what if they went in and bought 5 million shares, 1 million shares? Well, two things happen. The bid starts firming up. The computers that sell 100 shares, constantly probing, constantly spoofing, constantly putting offers out, and then 100 or 533 shares off. So you always see red. And then you start thinking it's telling you something. G-Bucks, by the way, right now is 6 cents. If you liked it at $8.50, you will love it at 6 cents. All it takes is one group to start buying, and the bids firm up, but also those computers recognize that their little puny plan isn't working, and they start pulling back, they start raising. And the band, some of the computers, like I'm sure at Ionic, they trade inside of these technical patterns, bands. They just move it up. So the stock can be going up, and they can still be doing their back and forth, Edwina Beckenbull. They can do it at higher prices. But eventually, they're going to move to a different stock. So then you're going to see this 52,500 shares that used to always be on the ask disappear. And you might have, it won't show up on the computer, but you might have the stock price buttressed by it'll be by phone, but in order to buy 3 million shares at the best price up to some number. This stock is not going to stay down here. As soon as that veil is lifted and these knowledgeable people can buy, because they don't hesitate like you and I. They're not looking, oh my God, the stock price is telling me something. They're not looking at it that way. They're not looking, just like Eric Sprott just said. He said, you know, in many ways, this has worked to my advantage, Eric Sprott said, because I can buy mining companies cheaper than I otherwise could. These guys and girls will know that this is cheap, but they're gone right now, and it drives you crazy because to you, it's telling you something. And the most absurd thing I heard, well, it's not that absurd. It's not that absurd in the United States. But remember, Canada is a country they started and nobody went to, you know, as Rodney Dangerfield used to say. I think Canada has a population of 40 million people. There's cities in the world with more population than Canada. And Canada's spread out. There's states in the United States that have more population than Canada. It doesn't have that many. I mean, it's probably got as many financial institutions maybe as, maybe not New York City because everybody's headquartered there, but maybe as Pennsylvania or maybe as Virginia or maybe as Illinois. I don't know. It's not that many. I think there's more regulation up there than there is down here. And I think if a board member or an insider were to start buying now, because they know and they understand that a tie-up with TELUS is going to lead to what I call hosting fees. I don't know what they call it. But shared computer revenue, they call it compute revenue. And it's going to translate. I gave you an example yesterday of $1 a share could be projected in cash flow. I mean, guys, that's just gigantic. The stock's trading at 30 cents, 29 cents. I mean, it'll take months to have that eventualize. But these people will be able to make those projections and trust those projections because they're in it. They're in it. You're all uncertain because the screen's ever red, as if it means anything. It just means it's manipulated. And it really means you get a chance to buy the stock at an incredible price. If you know that the technology is what they say, and I believe that's true. And if you know there's no toxic crap financing, and I don't think there will be, for sure, 99% for sure. And if you know that the TELUS deal and the AIP deal have been announced and are real, which they are, I don't know why anyone would see the low price as anything but a steal. And it's time to flip, you know, like in China, the symbol for crisis is danger and opportunity. I'll show it to you. It's time to go from the danger side to the opportunity side with rail. And I don't know how many trading days are left. 8. That's it. And it could change any morning, by the way. You're going to say, well, are you now telling me that it's going to be February? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for your own sanity, just tell yourself it's going to be February. But we're halfway through December. And next week, there's 5 trading days. The following week, there's 2.5. I don't know. Kwanzaa begins on Boxing Day. I don't know if that's half a day or not. But I bet in Canada, they won't be trading. So we've basically got 5 trading days, and I would call it 7 trading days until Christmas Eve. And that's it. That's it. I don't think the rest of the year is going to matter. It could give you a chance to buy. So how do you buy? I really think this stock's hit its low, and it could snap. When I say go up, I'm not. It's not gonna change your experience in the short run. But I think it could go to 32, 35, 38, and then maybe 40, 42. But that's what I think it could do over the next week and a half. I've had numbers here I wrote down before. They're all wrong, but I suppose it's possible it could go back to its highs by then, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it goes to 40 cents. But I tell you what, that's 25% higher than here. So one way to accumulate stock is just buy it. Another way is to break your money up into, 10 parts and buy 1/10 at the market opening each day. Or better yet, you can overcomplicate it. But when the stock is going up, you'd want to buy it at the opening. But when they put pressure on, maybe you buy it in the middle of the day. But you just spread it out over 10 trading days. You can just buy it. Another thing you can do is put out a good to canceled order under the market. And, I know Pete thought that it might go to 20 cents. That he may be right. I kind of thought 27.5, 28, depending on how you looked at my fat line, was the support. Below that, maybe 25 cents. Personally, I think the panic's over. The stampede is over. And I think the stock is going to firm from here. I think the company is going to start telling its story. I have no idea. And believe me, I've asked anyone I can think of. I have absolutely no idea what specifically will cause full disclosure to have been met in the eyes of the regulators. I assume, as I've said to you, that TELUS owes us more of an explanation of what's going on. But I don't know if there's, I don't know if TELUS has to break it apart into, more than one announcement. I don't know if they have to let us know that they've started a program for, it sounds like a wonderful idea, for digging wells in Nambia, and they've sent their crew there, and they're going to announce that on behalf of TELUS first. I don't know the thinking at that bureaucracy. But, so I don't know when, I don't know what, I don't know if it's one or more from TELUS, or if it's TELUS at all. It may be other pieces of news. But all I do know is when that final bit of full disclosure is met, then again, I don't know after that. Let's say they release it on a Wednesday, and then the institution, whoever it is, has to call an attorney. That brings in a whole nother universe of, well, Belinda's on vacation. Can I put you through to Lisa? I'm sorry, Lisa's out. She'll be back in tonight. Could you Yes, yes, yes. So it could be delayed by 24 hours more, 48 hours more. You never know. You never know. But anyway, once it's over, you could really see that bid firm up. And these little chickens, these little cockroaches, these little hyenas are going to scram from the carcass as the lion gets up and roars. So I think this is our opportunity. It's 3 o'clock. No, it's 3:16. I'm going to try to show you revenue projections. I'm going to try to show you some other things, but I'm going to go through your comments. But I think rather than having a pit in our stomach, we should see this as a time to be resolute, a time to march forward, a time to square our shoulders, and a time to act, act, act every single day. Buy if you can. If you can't buy, maybe the act you do is you turn me off today and you just say to yourself, I'm not listening again until Martin Luther King's birthday, a month from now. Maybe that's your action. And you set about, cleaning the house, selling things. I'll tell you, people, and I got to do it too. If David Hunter is correct, and there will be a global bust at some point, I hope not. I hope it's when AOC's president, because they'll condemn Trump like Hoover in history books if it happens. But if things after a 45, 43-year secular bull market where everything went the baby boomers' way, real estate, bonds, interest rates, stocks, everything except silver, jobs, womanism grew and grew and grew. The cost of education exploded, but everything went up. Everything, all by debt. Everything by debt. If it's conceivable there will be a crash and a global bust and essentially a depression, and maybe it'll just be a deep recession. All that stuff you have that you don't need, right now people will buy it from you. No one will be able to buy it then. So that might be something you work on for the next month, trying to sell crap that you don't need. In my case, I lost most of my crap when I lost my house. So I don't have that option, but some of you may have that option. You may be able to raise $10,000. And in a year and a half now, you won't have that opportunity. That might be something to focus on. Maybe what I should start doing is talking about other things, which I want to do. Miners, my phone's been out, I told you, but it's back on. And I forget how long it was, 10 days or something. I really don't. My brain is so bad. I don't know. Maybe it was 2 weeks, but I don't think it was quite that long. Anyway, I can reach out to the people in the gold company. Some of you have sent me emails. I might make that my project for the next week or so. And maybe I can do something live here, or we can talk about other things. Maybe I can get 1 or 2 interviews, although it's a bad time for it. But I just really think we cannot obsess about this price, even if it goes down. That's an opportunity to buy more. I don't think it is, but anything can happen on any one day. But at the end of 2025, at the end of December, all that regurgitation of shares, whether it's just out of disgust or I don't want to wait any longer, or tax loss selling, or advisors say, why don't you get out of it and put it in the Merrill Lynch side tech AI fly high bust fund. And, but that'll be all over. That'll be all over. January, I don't know about the first week, but January is going to start off an upward trend in this stock, slowly at first, and then it could be something for the ages. And the problem is, it could take 9 months from January or longer, or it could happen in 3 months. It's going to be explosive to the upside potentially, or just steadily upward. And you're going to be glad you own the shares. It is not another GTII. That should be their slogan. Railtown, we're not another GTII. They better rush out and get a patent. They better trademark that slogan. All right, let me go through your comments. Let me make sure. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to say. The last trade is 29.88, 29.2 on the bid, and 30.33 on the ask. And it's only 3,000 shares on the ask. The only other thing I wanted to tell you on the subject of finger motion, and it's just because somebody told me that Ham's been recommending call options, and I'm not saying anything bad about that. But one thing about Railtown I was thinking about, Railtown is like having, and somebody reminded me, Railtown is like having a call option that never expires. So anyway, I had these calls on Finger, and they expired. And the stock went up the next week, of course. That's how it always is. And it was a little more complicated. They exercise, anyway, without going all through that. We are in this stock. We bought it at 60 cents, 55 cents, 50 cents, 45 cents, 40 cents, 35 cents. And we've been wrong because of me. That's on me. I apologize to everybody. I've been more urgent than I should have been. But we've been wrong on the price. But if you own an option, you can be correct on the price, but you run out of time. You can call the story perfectly, but the time premium disappears. Friday comes, nothing. 2 weeks later, the stock's up $5 and you don't have anything. The beauty of Railtown, even though we've gone through this awful storm, it's like a call option that hasn't expired. It's been painful, but it's still sitting there. We still have it. The price is down, but it's still extant. All right, so finger motion is 158 to 159. Last trade 159. It opened at 165. It was as high as 167.99 and as low, wow, as 153.5. G-Bucks is strengthened. The bid is 6 cents. The ask is 7.5 cents, and the last trade is 0.068. GDC is 390 to 394. 12,000 shares. And I guess that's it. The other one you don't care about. Railtown is 29.2 to 30.33. 142,000 shares. And last trade, 29.88. 2,000 shares at that price. And the Red Sox are showing interest in Wilson Contreras. That'll change your life. All right, let's go through your comments. Phil Haynes is number one. Bravo. No, bravo. How are you, Phil? Hey, Jeff, number two. T. Alex. Hola. Fast Eddie. Dollar Bill. How are you? Silver Skyrocket. Silver Skyrocket says higher than average volume in Canada today. Let's look at that. A lot of that's arbitrage. A lot of that is because, in my opinion, is because we're here and they need retail to have something to pluck. Railtown's up in Canada, Silver Skyrocket. It's up 5%. I mean, it's still low to where it was 5 weeks ago. It's at 41 cents. The volume's pretty high in Canada. What? Higher than average? Oh, I see. I misread what you're saying. So the volume in Canada is higher than average. Yeah, it's 281,510. My understanding is the company is geared up to start telling their story. They're chomping at the bit. So maybe some buying is starting to come in, tiptoeing in, or maybe there is some buying in some people that know something are starting to buy, maybe. It's amazing. Amazing. I just changed the batteries on my thermostat. I'm such an idiot. And now there's warmth in my... I'm such an idiot. At least it's warm. It's good for that. Yeah, the bid in Canada is 15,500. The ask is 4,500. I really think the crushing selling is over with. I think there was a lot of fear, but there was also a very maybe the word is well-deserved fair. There was a fair loss of confidence, sense that, what the hell's going on over there? And but I still haven't gotten direct conversation that I've wanted, but I've gotten some color over the last, I don't know, day and a half, 2 days. Still waiting, hoping for more more direct guidance, I guess. But I think we're through the storm, so that's good. T. Alex, looks like we have a lifeless positive moment before the meeting. I'm not sure what that means, except that the meeting's next Wednesday, and you're right. I think the meeting's going to be perfunctory. Count the votes. Thanks for stopping by. But it is interesting, T. Alex, that there still could be some news that happens before that meeting. On the other hand, it might just be another day, to everybody. I would guess if there's going to be news that Railtown has any say-so in it, probably next week. But if we're waiting on TELUS, which I don't know if we are, but it seems logical because we got the news that they're working together. I don't know when that could be. They have an initiative down in Colombia to get all the school children to allow them access to brand new baseball stadiums for school, and they have to get that announced first. Jack Hamilton, good afternoon, sir. Hope you and all Railtown members are well. RT, I love it. Gone, go Neom. Hi, William. Long time. Stay away from over-the-counter stocks. I think that summarizes my message, but it's not, any blanket statement. There are exceptions. And Railtown's not an over-the-counter stock. I mean, obviously it trades on the over-the-counter, but it's a Canadian stock. And sometimes you have to buy the stock on the over-the-counter when others can't buy, so it's cheap. Look, if those people in Canada, if they could buy right now, I think this would be a $2 stock and it, on its way to being uplisted. I don't know if they'll uplist it in the United States, stop trading in the United States. I have no idea. But in Canada, they're on the Canadian Stock Exchange. I think they're on the junior part. Maybe they uplist to the adult part of Canadian Stock Exchange. I don't know exactly how it works in Canada. But this is a mispriced stock. And I think to just follow your admonition blindly, people are going to miss a chance to make 10 or 20 times their money. There's some assumptions, but fairly, I mean, this could be a $3 stock in January. That's 10 times your money. And just to follow your suggestion is a little bit blockheaded. But on the other hand, you're right. I think everybody should get away from the manipulated stories, the breathless stories, the short squeeze stories. We don't know how to trade them, even if one works. Very few people make money in the ones that work. So, hey, Steve. Thank you very much. Quit that. Thank you very much. It's kind of you. I appreciate it, Clay, very much. Julius, choo-choo, Railtown is coming. Yes, but let's just ease up on ourselves. Let's take the opportunity of this potentially slow period of time to add to the position, put orders in under the market. Although I think you saw the lows, doesn't mean I'm right. The chart looks like crap when you pull out, zoom out. But I bet if the stock closes in the green today, I bet the chart will look all right in the short run. I don't know. I'll look at it. But next week is, I guess, a work week, and then the holidays start. So let's just ease up on ourselves. I don't know what to do about, frankly, what was my miscalculation to emphasize this in June. I probably should have waited till December, but It's hard to unring a bell. Hey, Jim. How are you? And everybody. Clay. Wow, Clay's going to catch up with Donna. And Donna's. No, you're going to surpass Donna. That's amazing, Clay. I'm jealous. There was a time when I could have done these kind of numbers. There was a time. But no more. No more. All right, so let's see, Clay. Clay is, that's amazing, Clay. That's awesome. That really is. Congratulations. So picked up 7,000 more shares. I think that the story has only gotten better. New target. Yeah, I agree with you. I think not only has the story gotten better, it's still speculative. You know, there's still slip between lip and lip, but at least a couple of items have been nailed down. One is AIP. Secondly is this thing, TELUS, which I'm telling you, this TELUS, when you start studying the press release and the investor deck, and just try, and then I've also read and I showed you some videos about the TELUS data center, but I've read things on sovereign AI and in Canada. And when you see the magnitude of it, it's small. I mean, Rhode Island could probably kick Canada's butt. Well, I'm not sure, but maybe Tennessee could kick Canada's butt. But when you look at it, and I want to do it after we keep talking, but just the data that's in the investor presentation, they're going to transfer over 125 million worth of spend. Those companies, 125 of those companies are already spending 120 million hosting their products elsewhere. That's going to come over to TELUS. And then the way I read it, the presentation and the news story, I think there's a really good chance if, and this is what my understanding is, if Railtown's product is first to market and best in class, first mover, there's a really good chance that Railtown's platform is going to be used all over TELUS's customers. If that's true, and obviously that needs to be fleshed out, but certainly some slice of TELUS's customers, maybe a majority, but maybe all of them, it's just massive. And each customer's demand is going to grow. It's just, we're looking at it the wrong way. I think the 125 companies doing 120 million, you could double that if all the companies move over, and that could be growing. So that'd be like 240, call it 200 million in shared compute revenue. But man, I showed you yesterday, TELUS in their earnings call projected increasing their, I forget the term now, they called it the revenue from enabling AI, something like that they called it. I read that as data center. Again, That's something that needs to be fleshed out. But they're going to increase that from 800 million to over 2 billion over the next 2 years. Well, Railtown might get part of that 800 million. They might share all of the rest of it. But if you call it, I mean, just for simplicity, we call it 800 million total out of the 2 billion. And again, it's the projection that matters. And you add the 200 million from the network, which could grow higher. That's $1 billion in shared. What the hell does he call it? Compute revenue? Yeah, that's exactly what they call it. Shared compute revenue. $1 billion, again, forward projected, not right away. I don't know. Take 20% of that. That's 200 million in revenue to Railtown at 100% payout, or 90%, or some high number. It's just amazing. 200 million. And that could become visible, projectable. You know, it could become projectable in 45 to 90 days. Could take longer too. But 200 million, that's what, it's slightly below what SoundHound is projected to trade at. And that SoundHound was 7 billion, if you call it 5 billion. And we have 250 million shares outstanding. Because I'm not counting the roll-up, as if the roll-ups don't happen. I think that's $100 a share, but let me just, $50 a share maybe. 5 billion divided by 250 million. There's only 225 million now. $20 a share, way off. So just from that little projection I did, that's worth $20 a share. If they get a 25 multiple, 30 multiple. But what if the multiple what if the multiple is 50 or 70 or 100? I mean, the upside here is truly, truly magnificent. Flying bus driver. Yay, flying bus driver. Yay. That's amazing. Congratulations. Congratulations, 100,000. Bravo. Man. That's just wonderful. That's really good. Good to see you, Clay. At these prices, I'll keep buying. Yes, sir. Justin Babish. I bought 4,705 at 29 cents. Bravo. See, Justin, you're doing it. Your average is coming down. I know you're still down, but that's the way, to me anyway, that's the way to get plum dog mean and just stare in the face of adversity. Don't quit. Go forward and act. And that's brilliant, Justin. That's brilliant. That's a good price, too. Both prices are good. You'll see. 44 cents right here. I think this stock can go to 445. It's 10 times your money. And then I think, I have much higher targets in mind, but Jason Harbison, have I talked about 19 billion Microsoft? Not today, but I was going to print out some and go over it. But you're right, Jason. Microsoft not only has committed a bunch of money to Canada, they've come up, I forget the exact name, they've come up with this, they say anyway, tool or whatever program to keep Canada's data sovereign in Canada. I think they're going to be met with some skepticism. We'll have to wait and see, Jason. But I think the combination of TELUS already having built 2 data centers with the green energy and the hydropower and the polar bear water and the NVIDIA, the brand new NVIDIA chips. And they announced that back in the summer. My guess is they're ready to go by now. These others will catch up, but I think the lead time for TELUS to capture customers in the AI sovereign, safe, secure, away from Donald Trump space, I think the opportunity is there for TELUS to claim a huge portion over the next 9 months, 18 months, 24 months. I don't know how long the Microsoft investment will take to be built, tested, and up and running. But TELUS, I would imagine TELUS is all ready to go. So while all of us, me included, became quite frustrated, and maybe I was the most, with the delays with AIP, it looks like progress behind the scenes with TELUS and with Railtown continued. And I think we're going to get a jump start. We're going to claim the beach before anybody else. It's very exciting. Sachi, wow, that's a nice purchase. That's a nice purchase, Sachi. That's very nice. Bravo. You guys are going to make me jealous if I think about it too long. Donna, hello. Jack, RT. Jack says good afternoon to Donna. Oh, here comes a friend of the company, friend of the audience, E. Belanger. Corey's plan is not retail investor oriented, but is for institutional investors. He has a plan, focuses on it, and doesn't care about the stock price. And that's fine with me, That gives us a chance to buy it and hold on to it. And I don't think we would have ever had a chance to get into a similar story. Most of the stories go through Palo Alto, and you've got to have your money with Madison Dearborn or Bain Capital or something, or some product of Wall Street. We're able to get now at this price. We're basically buying it at this pre-seed valuation. I think a few years ago, people obviously paid lower, maybe 5 cents, 10 cents, 15 cents. And then people have paid more too, in I think in financings. But we're very close to it. So whether you call it pre-seed or seed, that's what we're paying. And we get to come into it. And I think Corey's correct, frankly. He should be focusing on revenue, revenue, revenue. And the definition between institutional and retail is a blurred line there. Family offices, wealthy retail. But I think he should be focusing on that. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think he's doing the right thing doing that. And I don't think, because it's the CEO's, I mean, the CEO's got to make sure they're not making mistakes. But I don't think the CEO should be checking the price of his or her stock every day, every minute, every week. I really don't. As long as he doesn't do some sort of toxic, predatory financing, and he closes AIP, and I think if he focuses on TELUS, which is huge when you think about it, we're gonna do fine. And there isn't any toxic financing coming. And he did close AIP. And TELUS announced their data centers. You know, Microsoft is putting money in. TELUS already did it. T. Alex, anybody who thinks Railtown is sitting on their hands and falling behind is dead wrong and should not be here. This is saying Railtown all three. That would be saying Railtown, AIP, and TELUS are asleep. It's a good point. I think look, we're in the middle of a technological revolution. Whether you believe it or not, I don't know. We'll know in the future. But for all parties, this is enormously important. So you're exactly right. That would have to be. Well, let's not talk about any of the other stocks. Ward Richardson. Good afternoon, William and RT crew. I did some research on the Mag 7 developers. Microsoft, I guess you're saying they have 100,000 plus developers. They will spend 21 billion. Google has 45,000 plus. They'll spend 16 billion. Tesla has a few thousand. They'll spend 1.25 billion. Amazon has 55,000. They'll spend 14 billion. Nvidia, can't tell. Meta has 26,000, and they'll spend They'll spend 9.1 billion. Pretty amazing. And Apple 50,000. That's a lot. That's huge numbers. Apple will spend 14.6 billion. Those are huge numbers. Ward Richardson agrees with you, T. Alex. Tianasaurus Alex. Ward Richardson says the spend on Mag 7 developers, or I guess by their own developers for 2025. That's huge numbers. Huge numbers. All right, so now I can see what I had to show you. And I almost forget what I had to show you. Colby Cormier. I increased my position by 400%. Wow, Colby. You guys are great. You guys are great. I wish I could join you in adding. I have to put my brain together. That's great, Colby. Congratulations. That's a really nice number. I'll look for your email. I think you told me you were going to do that a couple days ago, but I'll look. All right. Let me see what's in my. Oh, this one. This one. The Chinese word for rail town is opportunity. All right, it's 2948, 0.288 by 0.299. It closed at 0.2848. So they're going to try to put it in the red. But we'll see. This was yesterday's chart. Here is, I didn't do a new one. So they tried to get it down. But I think this horizontal green line, 2750, maybe 28, is, I think that's pretty meaningful support. Doesn't mean, there's no magic to it. But I also think maybe my trend line might be somewhat relevant. I don't know. But the stock, they tried to get it down today, but it looks like if it can close up today, that'll be a nice reversal. And it might be all we need to reverse the action, the direction in the stock. All right, yeah, that's what I wanted to. I wanted, yeah, we'll do that too. We'll do that too. We've got 2 minutes. 28.8. It's so low. It's just. I wish I had money, but it's just so. A year ago, this stock was 40 cents. Anyway, the bid is 28.8. The ask is 30.32. So the bid is under. No, the bid is over the previous close. So I think either way you slice it, if this holds, we're going to close in the green. And maybe finally it's a turnaround. 144,000 shares traded. Last trade 400 shares at 29.48. I can't tell if that was driven by buying or selling. 1 minute to go. Less than a minute to go. Volume is still 144.7. And last trade 29.48, up a penny, up 3.51%. And it closed at 29.48, up a penny. So we got a green day. Finally. All right, let's I'm missing one here. Let me see. I'll try to get them both again. Okay, I don't know which one I'm missing. Oh, I see. Maybe I wasn't missing it. Okay. Yesterday, I guess, Nextbridge Hydrocarbons announced completion of their statements. I don't. I guess I should read it, but it catches them up on what the SEC was asking them to do. They filed their amended reports for 24. So it is the successful completion of the amending and restatement process for 2023 and 2024 that the SEC required. And therefore, they were able to put out an annual report for the year ending 2024. So that's all good. I would assume they're largely in compliance with the SEC now, although they may have some work to do for this year. Nextbridge has received a letter from the SEC confirming their review of our amended Form 10-KA for fiscal 23. These amended Form 10-QA filings now resolve all open comments regarding those statement periods, and with that, Nextbridge has honored all restatement requests made by the SEC and fulfilled our commitment to the lengthy process required to do so. So that I take that as really, really good news. But the next news wasn't so great. The company updated their drilling on Panther, and it was not commercial. They drilled a dry hole. But they're now moving over to Valentine Prospect, and the Valentine Prospect, the Broncho Prospect, and other Wildcat special purpose vehicle acquisitions all remain with the potential to become substantial reserves. And then Greg McCabe said, I take great pleasure in informing our extremely patient shareholders that this chapter of restating prior year's financials is behind us. It has taken a tremendous expenditure of time, effort, and moolah to get us here, but we are now able to move on to other highly important endeavors, and move on we will. I look forward to updating everyone as our journey progresses, including our strategic shift into Louisiana as our focus area. Now, this means that Oro Grande project is probably still, destroyed by the bloody shorts. But if there's oil there, the dinosaurs don't know anything about shorts. And he can get back to it. But this southern Louisiana strategy that he's using, I know from my own experience that if one of those wells hits, and they've obviously been careful in their seismic and etc., even with a small percentage, it can be a company maker. So this is great progress for Nextbridge, in my judgment, in my opinion. All right, there's an article that's very lengthy, something like 160 pages that I found. It's out of Canada, and I was trying to find some short descriptions of the predatory short selling to share with you. But you know what? Everything is written by attorneys or Wall Street, and they all start, and or the SEC, they all start with, well, short selling is critically needed to provide liquidity to our markets, and it protects retail from the exuberance of stock rally. It's really painful to read. It's all crap. So it's hard to find anything that, or anybody that truly understands. And that's partly because, like Eric Sprott just said to you, the evidence you can see in the stock price action. You can see it, but you can't prove it. He just said it. I've said that. So let me just read. It looks like 4 or 5 pages. I was going to go through a lot of it. These are just snippets, but this is to further emphasize my point that this stock price isn't telling you anything. And it goes back to Eric's point. Corey should be focused on running the company, and the stock price will take care of itself. So, all right, let's this was what Eric Sprott was just talking to you, and this is this article, which I'll show you the full thing, I guess, over the weekend. But this is the problem: the removal of the uptick rule. Back in October 2012, a wide number of so-called trading enhancements. It's all crap. It's like when they used to gather us in the conference room to tell us that the new commission schedule came out, and they would call it revenue enhancements, as if it were good for us. It's just good for the regional directors and the Harvard business types that were employed to cut our commission. Back in October 2012, a wide number of so-called trading enhancements were implemented by the TMX group. The two exchanges are housed there, the TSX and the TS Venture. And this guy has a whole campaign going, and it's amazing these people do such a great job writing these reports. On October 4, 2012, the TMX group sent notice to confirm trading enhancements sent to begin on October 15, 2012. By the way, it's in all stocks in Canada, all exchanges. The enhancements in the notice reflected recent regulatory amendments respecting short sale regulation. Let me have a drink. The introduction of a short marking exempt designation, amendments respecting dark liquidity on Canadian equity markets, and functionality introduced as a result of client demand, that's the hedge funds, and market quality initiatives. When you try to fight one problem with another problem, the result is never positive. I will explain what happened in a little bit. This is a very long report, so we may or may not get to it. But this chart, look at the 1-year chart for the TS Venture composite since the rules were announced. There it is. Now, obviously, this is an older report, but obviously also that's one explanation. You know, people that support these changes will say, oh, it was the CEOs, or oh, it was Trump, or oh, it was the great financial crisis, whatever. But I think the evidence is here what did it. It's the removal of the uptick rule. And this gentleman here goes on, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to break down the above chart. Since the notice of the quote-unquote trading enhancements update by the TMX, the TSX Venture has dropped like a rock. Why? The death spiral. When regulators forced the group to allow trading through alternative trading systems operated by third parties, Ken Griffin, it caused real-time transparency issues. When you combine the lack of transparency in parallel trading platforms with the use of high-frequency trading, I'll try to find that report, regulators had no choice but to eliminate the tick test rule or uptick rule for short selling. Because when you're trading high frequency and then you're doing it in multiple places, I guess it was unenforceable. I guess. How to manipulate stock through short selling. This is what's happening in Railtown and has been. And there's those out there that say, no, it's real selling, loss of confidence. That may be true, but I would submit while there's a buying blackout, whatever buying happens in Canada was going to be met with selling. But anyway, let's go. When the removal of the uptick rule was implemented in 2012, a short marking exempt designation was also introduced via IROC. That's their one of their regulators. The quote, the short marking exempt unquote designation, the whole thing's quoted, is required to be applied to orders for qualifying accounts of arbitrageurs, market makers, there is no such thing, and high-frequency traders that typically generate a high volume and speed of orders on a fully automated basis, computer programming. They may have orders on both sides of the market, Ionic Ventures, on various marketplaces at the same time. And that's arbitrage when it's legal. And that adopt a quote-unquote directionally neutral strategy such that generally the position in each security in the account is flat at the end of the day, unquote. Well, it doesn't mean the stock's not down 20%. This is what I've described to you by these pool stock at the DTCC, for example. In other words, as long as a firm adopts a directionally neutral strategy, such that generally the position in each security in the account is flat at the end of the trading day, it does not have to declare the short sale. That's what walked Logic way back when down from $3 to under $1 via Ionic and others. This was done because IROC believes that the use of the short market exempt order designation allows them to separately monitor the trading activities of those accounts which are actively buying and selling the same security without taking a directional position and that of but as differentiated with the accounts of an actual short sale activity that may have adopted a directional position. This is the confusion and the naivete and probably the youth of people writing this stuff. People can't accept that the well-dressed, smiling bankers sitting across the conference table are a devil. All right, spoof trading. Spoofing is when a trader enters deceptive orders, tricking the rest of the market into thinking there's more demand to buy or to sell than there actually is. That's from Bloomberg. The price isn't telling you anything about the fundamentals of the company. It might be telling you something about confidence. That's true. There's probably some real selling, but I think 80% or more is not. In the case of short selling, a trader would show pressure on the sell side through stacked sell orders, but remove them if the market begins to move higher. So let me translate. If you're short selling, you see that 52,500 every day for sale, and you figure if somebody comes to buy it, they're going to have to sell it. But no, they spread it out amongst a bunch of different orders. So as soon as the first stacked order, they call them stacked orders, these stacked sell orders are often viewed, especially by retail investors, with a lack of market data as weakness in the stock. You may be wondering what happens if buyers come into the market. Wouldn't the sellers be on the hook to buy the stock? You see, these sell orders are often in small board lots, 100 shares, for example, so that any time the lead sell order is hit or taken, the firm only has to sell a few hundred shares short. When this happens, the computers automatically adjust their sell orders higher. They adjust the parameters while still maintaining pressure on the stock by maintaining multiple stacked sell orders behind a real sell order. Sometimes anyway. This allows the short sellers to put downward pressure on a stock without having to declare a short because they remain neutral by buying just enough shares to end up with a flat position in the stock. And you guys don't believe me that the stock price, I didn't finish all that because it's such a long report. So what is down ticking? Down ticking is when a trader sells stock so that the most recent change in the share price is negative. This usually is done right before the market closes using very small amounts. I've read them to you, 100 shares, 500 shares. It's illegal as hell. And since the stock charts only follow the closing price of the stock, you can see how easy it is for a short seller to create a nasty looking downward chart by spoofing and down ticking. These practices are illegal, but happen to many Canadian stocks. Just ask Ontario Securities Commission. Most retail investors don't see this type of activity because most trade without the use of level 2 data. They only see the last bid and ask, which may not even be correct. The next time you see a stock in the green for the whole day, only to end up in the red with less than a minute to go, now you know what might have happened. The problem for Canadian regulators is they can't keep an eye on the thousands of stocks that trade every day. And so if you're looking at it and you call me up and you say it's red, it's been red every day, down, down, down. Well, yeah, they walk it down. But this is what it is. Well, it's fair to ask, always to check if there's something else. This was the article. This isn't a good picture. Canada's stock market manipulation and trading transparency issues on Equidia. And this is the last one I'll show you. The dark side of short sales, short and distort via Desjardins. Desjardins, that's the garden. Short selling also has a dark side, courtesy of a small number of traders who are not above using unethical tactics to make a profit, sometimes referred to as the short and distort. This technique takes place when traders manipulate stock prices in a bear market. And we just went through a bear market in our stock price, but this is by taking short positions and then using a smear campaign to drive down the target stocks. Short selling abuse like this has grown with the advent of the internet and the growing trend of small investors in online trading. Short and distort participants have amassed fortunes, driving Canadian companies into the ground. And with the removal of the uptick rule and the introduction of the SME designation, predatory short selling became even easier. I have yet to see a regulator come down on illegal short and distort participants. I was going to show you that at the beginning. That's all by way of showing you that, at least I would argue entirely, but at least, and I would argue in the majority, but maybe I should say at least partially, what you're seeing here is this short and distort, the spoofing, the crossing, the marking the price down, manipulating the price down just slightly, always red, and it just wears on you, it destroys you. And that's why I suggest let's just draw a line here, and it's happened, and I regret it. I wish I had told each of you to wait till December. But I think okay, that happened. Now we go from today and we make the best play that we can going forward. And I think that best play is to come in and buy down here because the stock is low, because the buyers are gone. Obviously not we, you know who I mean. There's still a limit of news and disclosure pending some unknowable 1, 2, 3, who knows, bits of disclosure. I think it's pretty obvious one of them has to be a further discussion of what is the arrangement between TELUS and Railtown. But we don't know for sure. And then I lost my train of thought. Anyway, there are no buyers of import. We are significant buyers, but I think ours happens within a computerized range that is preset, and we don't have the wherewithal to break it upward. I think it's all about Canada. So those buyers are gone. The disclosure we're still waiting on. We got some. We did get the AIP. I would say there's been a destruction of confidence in the story, perhaps in management, perhaps and almost certainly with me, but we made it through. And this is our opportunity to buy, because I think, if I'm not too alarmist, I think the stock's going to be gone at some point. Now, that could be that it's $12 and you can buy some there. But I think the buyers will come in. This program selling this hyena short business, it's going to stop. And 50 million shares or more are closely held by the company's principals. 50 million or more are bought all along this last years, and they're relatively closely held as a group. Probably maybe there's one key person like a broker or something, but I wouldn't say those are restricted from selling, but they're not selling here. They may have been just as upset as the rest of us. They're just human beings, but they didn't buy it for short-term trading. So you've got 100 million or more owned by people who were considered insiders or are considered blocked by the non-disclosure of information. So they're not buying. That's 100 million of shares. And then you've got this campaign of selling, which I think will end. So as the veil of secrecy almost lifts, I think you're going to see these buyers come in. I think you're going to see research. I think you're going to see projections. I think you're going to see company marketing and shareholder presentations and outreach. I think you're going to see the program selling stop or just become smaller for a while. And this price will go up. I think I'm going to leave it there unless there's a question, because I'd like to just, I just like to end it there. But tomorrow, if I come on, I'll try to set up how I see the revenue playing out. There's some assumptions, but that's all you can do. All you can do, you have to have an idea of why you're in a stock. But I believe that Railtown will be able to show hosting revenues for the future. I think it has the potential to really start slowly and then catch fire and ramp up spectacularly. And if there's any projectability out of those numbers, and if in fact TELUS and Railtown are working together on these two data centers, which provide sovereignty and security for Canadian AI companies and customers. And these, I believe, are the only, and we'll find out, but my impression is these are the only two sort of brand new data centers ready for this. There may be others, but I haven't heard of any others. And if Railtown, as I believe, is ahead of everyone else, they're going to have a year to 2 years, 3 years to build revenue on the back of TELUS. That's going to be just beautiful and unique to Railtown. As soon as they start booking this revenue, it's profits. It's cash flow. I don't know how they'll, they may process their accumulated deficit or their write off some of their costs to save on their taxes. That's all, accounting manipulation. It's legal for different reasons. But the key thing is cash flow should be equivalent to that revenue, just the hosting revenue. And I'm ignoring everything else. Guys and girls, this is a gigantic story. And it wore me out over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And I think you saw a lot of my tension and hurt and all that. And I saw yours, some of yours. But we made it through. You made it through. And, now we just got to get through the holidays. Doesn't mean something couldn't happen dramatically any day. I have no idea. If the company were to announce some deal and it actually caught hold with people's imaginations, there could be some buying. Or if research came out dedicated to retail, maybe somewhere, that could cause buying. But of course, we've got to, I don't know the answer. Obviously, I thought, and we all thought the AIP deal was enough to stop this blackout of buying. But with time going by, I'm sure there's some accumulated news that has to come out. And we just find that out. So if we take some of that pressure off of the day-to-day and maybe just look at the next 2.5 weeks, the next 5 plus maybe 3 and 3, maybe 11. I don't know how you count the half days. The next 11 or 12 trading days as an opportunity to put orders in under the market or accumulate on weakness or just accumulate, because all of these prices are going to seem cheap, all of them. Remember, and I'll stop on this, remember, and I admit to you that I'm using wild ass guess numbers, but the AIP network, half of the network does 120 million in its spend. You can see that doubling or tripling over the next 24 months. TELUS is going to grow their revenue. If I read it to you yesterday, I think from the data centers, again, that's a bit of an assumption, to over $2 billion. Well, if Railtown is the platform or the interface or the underpinning of all of that on these 2 data centers, I mean, with a little bit of stretching, you could project $3 billion in shared revenue. At 20%, that's massive. But why not just say $1 billion at 20%? Or a billion at 15% for Railtown? It's 150 million in revenue, again, projected forward. But as soon as that becomes clear and people know that the margin is nearly 100%, is my guess, you're going to see just a huge snap up in the price. That's $1. Well, it's not $1 a share. That's like 66 cents a share. Well, it's probably 75 cents a share, maybe 66 cents a share. That's gigantic. The stock could, I mean, it could trade at 100 times that number. Could trade at 25 times, but it's a huge move from here. Huge. Just on that one source of revenue. And now's your time to accumulate shares. Because as soon as one or two institutional investors put their team on it, and the head of the investment committee reads the research and polls her traders and her staff, she's going to say, all right, let's buy 5% of this company. It's 10 million shares in the open market. She gets on the phone, or she has her traders do it. They get on the phone and they call, I don't know how many trading desks and brokerage firms there are in Canada. I mean, there's got to be fewer than there are in New Jersey. Well, I don't know about, anyway, I don't know how many there are, less than 50, but they'll make their phone calls out, say, we have interest, come back to me, let me know what I can buy. And whoever's first will gobble up all the weak hands, and then that bid will start moving, and then people will notice, the momentum players will come in. These same screwballs, I want to use a different word, that print money on the way down, they'll try to print money on the way up. The whole thing can get out of hand. But the bottom line is, you want to build your position while those buyers aren't here. You want to build your position while people are just sick of it. You want to build your position while there's blood in the streets, and you'll be well rewarded. And as long as we don't obsess about the price every single day and give each other some surcease from the recriminations and pressures and doubt, and maybe just accept that we're in a great investment, the next 2.5, 3 weeks could be a great opportunity to act, to shore up our accounts, to shore up our mental and emotional energy, take a little bit of break, but maybe build up our positions and be ready for the second week of January. And maybe it takes until February for the process of information, and then research, and then investment committees, and all of that. So let's not put pressure on ourselves. Let's enjoy accumulating for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and maybe until the first or second week of January, and then let's watch other people carry the load of this stock, and they'll come from everywhere. They'll be everywhere. And the key thing I'm going to have to try to do is get you to realize that this stock is not the same as the others, and that when you make 10x, when you make 20x, you may not want to sell. It's a win for retail. No, we want to get away from those kind of stocks completely. And it may be, we'll we'll follow it as it goes. If you can hang on to your rail town, not only are you going to make your losses back for this unpleasant period of time, but you can make multiples into the green, and then you have a substantial or significant account that you treat with a whole lot of respect, and maybe people on Wall Street will treat with respect, but you don't come back into these, quicksand is a polite description. These sinkholes, these destroyers of your wealth, your future, your sanity, your peace, your health, all because of the breathless recommendation that you get. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to wish everybody peace, and I hope we stay at peace in the world. We can pray for that. And let me see if there were any filings. No filings. So anyone, thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk. I bet we talk tomorrow. Ciao, Bella.